Welcome to another episode of Fight the Burnout. Today we have Maria. She is coming in to us from Florida. Lovely Florida. I love that place. But she is a burnout coach. So she also helps people overcome burnout. She's had her experience with it as well, which she will tell us about here shortly. But as usual, Maria, I'm going to let you take it away. But thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Chris. So yeah, my name is Maria Marcanoa, and I am a burnout repair coach. I work specifically with women because I had a personal experience, and that's what I'm here with burnout. And I have realized through my journey that the way that women experience burnout and stress is unique. And I didn't have that voice. I didn't have that when I was going through my entire process. And, a lot of trial and error went on. And so as it tends to be, whatever your journey is serving you so you can help others. Many years ago, going on 10 years ago, I was a professional in the corporate event industry. And I was telling Chris that where I'm here in Florida, Orlando, is second only to Vegas on the size and the amount of corporate events that happen. So these are tens and thousands, and times more than that, like cities. Yeah. Like one event is a whole city. So the logistics are insane, and you can imagine the level of stress, because one little mistake in an event like that, it can be catastrophic. And so there's quite a bit of pressure, and this industry is very it relies on people that are very detail oriented and meticulous and borderline perfectionists. Yep. So when someone like me with these tendencies, that one can say they are a good thing, but they can be run, in the other direction. So someone like me who is a high achiever or a high performer and with a tendency towards perfectionism lands in this type of work environment where that is praise and is how you do the best. You probably can realize how I drove it to the other end, until what I say is that I just push my body to the ground. Right. Yeah. I loved my career. I was really good at it. And sometimes that's what happens. Like high performing individuals and people like me, they love what they do. They tend to be really good at it, and they thrive on being good at it. Yeah. But the problem is that you thrive in that and that only, and the rest of your life sort of disappears. Yeah. And you're so identified with your role as a professional and a successful professional, and that then, of course, the other areas of your life suffer. That's what ends up happening, and combined with the high stress of the industry. I was really young, actually. Because I was a high achiever, by 30, I was the youngest, only woman, and only minority person in most of these big boardroom meetings. So I felt really intimidated, and that made me kind of push further, like harder. Yeah. And I end up burning out big time at age 33. And the way that this showed up, so burnout can show up in many ways, but in my body.
Yeah, so what was your definition of burnout, Maria?
Yeah, good question. So burnout for me is the emotional, mental, and physical manifestation of complete being drained. Yeah. Of being completely drained, but you're drained emotionally, physically, and mentally. And typically that comes after the onset of stress, or what some people call sympathetic overdrive, like always being on that space from your nervous system. Yeah. So it's a depletion. It's just being depleted mentally, physically, and emotionally. And that's how it happened.
Yeah, I can totally like we were talking about before, and people will obviously know as well. If they're not new to listening, is my wife's she was an event manager pre-COVID, and so I can totally she do. You know, she went to her last event that she did last year in 2019 was she took a group of, was it 60, I think it was, to the Rugby World Cup. And she did that was for like 4 days or 5 days. She's like, I literally slept like 3 hours a day the whole time I was up there. She's like, I literally, she goes, I was literally hallucinating at the end of it. And then she came back and slept for a whole day.
You know what is so crazy? Because I remember I didn't have enough sleep anytime I had a program. And then in the morning, when I'd be up at 4 in the morning or whatever, you know, before everyone had to have breakfast or, you know, I'm showing up and you're kind of a zombie. Yeah. For a bit there, you're just going through the motions and just trying to, it's this sensation of being totally exhausted, but at the same time wired.
Yeah. Because you have that adrenaline around it, and I can relate to it as well. I did VIP protection, so I did like New Zealand's version of Secret Service for almost 4 years. It's the same thing. We do 16-hour days, turn around and be back at work 6 hours later, and you had to drive back to the station to de-kit, and then drive home, and then drive back to the station, get your kit, and then drive back to the event. And you're just like, and it's exhausting. And then you're also like, for me at least, and I know for an events it's similar as well. You're so high level buzzing during that time, and adrenaline's running so much. Like for police officer, you know, you're so hyper vigilant, you're always scanning, always, you know, you're switched on constantly on what could go wrong, and you know it drains you, and then you get to the end and you're like and you completely plummet the other way. So you went through massive burnout with the events and that. I know you've completely shifted and changed everything that you're doing now. Did you up and just straight leave events when you burned out, or how did that kind of work? How did you come to the identification that you were burned out?
It wasn't that straightforward, really, because at the beginning, the first symptoms that showed up for me were not physical, they were emotional. So I was feeling anxious and I was losing my cool. And the funny thing is that one of the reasons why I used to get some of the best accounts is because I was really cool under pressure and very friendly and when everyone was losing it, I tend to be the person that always says like, okay, let's look at this. But in reality, I wasn't managing my emotions. I was internalizing them and just swallowing all of this. And it got a point to where it started to show. And so I was getting nervous and trying to hide it because I was nervous. I was afraid that people were going to think that, you know, I wasn't as good as I was before in my profession. And then I used to like I started losing my temper with some of my team members. And that's totally out of character for me. And that was a big red flag. So for me, the emotional part, and then at night, I remember going home and crying to go to sleep, just crying. Or sometimes if I didn't cry at night, I would cry in the morning driving to work. So my emotions were all over the place. It was confusing, but I thought, well, I just, you know, when the low season comes and I'll be fine, I'll take a vacation, right?
Always holding out for that vacation that's months and months away.
Yes. So I'll just, you know, take care of that. So I didn't pay attention. And that went on for a few years. I would say at least 2 years. Yeah. I kept pushing. Then there was the mental aspect, which a lot of people experience, which is that brain fog and the inability to focus. And I tell people, and I tell people I had a almost $250,000 mistake. And but I wasn't quite putting together either. You know, I just didn't quite, because I never heard the word burnout. This was about 10 years ago. I had no concept of this. But the last frontier was when my physical health started to deteriorate. I'm petite. And so when someone like me starts losing weight, you look sick. Yeah. And I started to look sick and my hair started to fall. And that's just, you know, that's to tell you how much you can ignore things until the body is like, it pulls a brake for you. And so the final goal for me was when I went to the doctor to figure out what was going on because I was so tired and I didn't look healthy. And people were starting to talk in the office like I had some type of eating disorder, and which didn't help. I was diagnosed with premenopause at age 33. So my hormone levels had aged some 30 years ahead of me.
Wow.
And that was really scary.
Yeah, it would be.
And I started to plan my exit at that very point because I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And the doctor didn't either. It was like you had to do something, and the suggestion is do yoga. So I started, well, it could have been worse. So I started there, but in my mind, I thought I didn't know how to stay in this industry and get better at the same time. I couldn't see it. So I started my exit strategy. And less than a year after that diagnosis, I left to get better. Really.
It's crazy because I have my journey is, I don't know if you're familiar with it or if Belinda told you much about it, but my journey is very similar. I did policing, saw some of, not even as bad as some of my colleagues had seen, but it just messed me up quite bad. And I internalized it. Same thing. Beginning, absolutely loved it. And then down the track ended up being like, no, nobody should ever do this job. Do not ever even think about it. And like literally people that I had told they should join, I was telling them, don't even think about it. Go do something else. And people would ask me, oh, how do I become a cop? And I go, don't do it. But and so I got down that same thing, and I started to get real angry and snappy and out of the order, wasn't myself in that. And then push come to shove, lots of different stuff, almost cheated on my wife, had lots of different things kind of happen. And we ended up going to counseling. The counselor said the same exact thing to me. She's like, you need to take a break because you're so empty. And so I was ready the next week to go anywhere. I was like, okay, I'm out of here. But we created a bit of a plan. And on the day after my 30th birthday, I flew back to the States, and I did 3 months just to refine myself on a motorcycle, traveling around, forcing myself to do the things that I knew were me, but I had lost. And so it's interesting. So tell us about your journey to come back from that stage to where you're at now, kind of to not be burned out.
To be honest with you, it's interesting what you tell me. Like you came to the States and you went on your motorcycle, which I'm assuming is something that you were passionate about before.
Very passionate about.
Because in my case, I did not have anything to fall back to because I had always been the overachiever. That was that girl in school. Me. I volunteered for every single additional thing if I knew that was going to give me some type of, because all of my identity was tied to achieving. And of course, this comes from upbringing, right? And this beliefs that start working on your unconscious. So I had no hobbies. Actually, the way that I got, I felt better while I was in the middle of this was retail therapy, and then going on vacation. So spending money, going on vacations, and drinking my glass of wine at night. So I truly didn't have any healthy coping mechanisms or anywhere to go. So for me, it's
really good for viewers, because for me, I had that because I grew up sailing around the world, and my parents took me on sailboats for my teenage years and that. So you felt you didn't have any healthy things. So what did you do? Tell us what you did.
Well, so I took the one thing someone told me, which is do yoga, because it was the only thing, right? It makes sense. I had other friends. I have friends that worked at the Cirque du Soleil at the time, and they always talked about this yoga teacher and this yoga this. So I started doing yoga, and then in true high achieving form, I decided to become a yoga techer, not just.
There's nothing wrong with that. You found a passion. You found something else you enjoyed, and you're like, cool, I want to get really good. But I want to touch on that just for a second for viewers of that. Because I know there's so many people out there that need to be perfect, high achievers, all that kind of thing, like you were describing yourself. And actually applying that to getting better it's a huge benefit. It's actually a very good thing to have, to be a high achiever, because somebody who isn't a high achiever will go, oh, I feel like crap, but I'm going to do nothing about it. Whereas when you recognize as a high achiever, you recognize I feel like crap and I don't want to be this anymore. Like I'm a high achiever as well. When I put my mind to
Yeah.
something, it's let's go. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to do everything I can to get better. I spent the last 4 years literally just working on myself and then transferring it over and turning it into like kind of like we'll talk about with you. But same thing. It's like, let's just dive into this and let's go. So you did
Right.
yoga, found yoga, decided you're going to become a yoga teacher.
Yeah, I spent 1 month in the center, and I did that I did the option, had that option of just do 1 month leave, because I thought I just want to plug myself out of all my known environments. And so I lived in that yoga center for a month, made great friends, went through the whole process. There was a lot of obviously healing, a lot of emotional healing, a lot of learning, and that was important for me. And then after that, I decided to spend time with my family, because when I was working, the way I was working, I could bear. I lived in the U.S., but my family's from Venezuela. They live in another country. I also have family in other countries, so it was really I didn't spend the time, and I actually carry like a guilt, almost this little guilt of not being there and not spending the time. So I went and spent months with them. And that was part of this connection that I had lost. And I think is very important as part of recovering, is to reconnect with the people that you love, and to be in those spaces where you feel safe and you can be vulnerable, and laugh.
Yeah.
And just, be relaxed without having to do much. So those were my first 2 steps. And then I continue, like you were saying, right? I study a holistic nutrition, because my body, obviously, arriving at almost menopause at 33, there was some physical things that needed to be cared for. And I learned and became very passionate about the use of plants and foods as medicine. And the last thing I did is I trained with who I consider my main mentor, who is Max Strom, and he works with breath work.
Yeah.
So when I found breath work, that's when the whole thing just united, and I knew at that point that I was gonna be okay. So I didn't work I gave myself enough runway. I know a lot of people can do this, right? But it's like a good 6-month runway of just taking care of myself. More than that, I think it was probably 9 months, like having a baby.
It is. It's a mental health baby.
Yeah, it's a mental health. It's like, okay, who's Maria without this, checking the boxes and earning prizes? And it still was difficult, because this mindset component was strong. And that has continued to be the main aim of my work, has been nervous system self-regulation through breath work and other somatic therapies, and just mindset called brain sculpting. It's like working out, but for your mind, because all those limiting beliefs that I interpreted as a kid, where my worth and my value was, were running. It was like Maria 1.0, and I needed to install Maria 2.0. Yeah.
So if we just recap, I just want to like clarify it down. So you first found something that you enjoyed that you hadn't done before, but obviously somebody had recommended to you yoga. You found yoga, or something that you're passionate about that was calming and soothing and good for you. Then you went on a thing of reconnecting with people, so creating connections, reconnecting with family. Then it was, what was next? Then it was the
regenerative eating, like
nutrition. So getting back into the holistic nutrition. So actually looking after the fuel that we put into our bodies. You don't put diesel into a gasoline car. So making sure you're putting the right nutrients into you, and then breath work. Yes. That's so, and I just want to simplify that out for people that are listening, just to be like, hey, these are, it is simple but hard at the same time, So okay, cool. So you did the breath work and all that. Have you gone back to doing events? or are you not? You just running?
No, no.
No.
No,
Okay.
there was a part of me that for a while thought, well, I can always go back
Yeah.
if this doesn't work. Because in my naivete, I thought, well, I'm gonna leave off being a yoga teacher. I had no idea. Here in the US, I'm not sure how it is over there, but here to make a living as a yoga teacher is not that easy.
No. I think
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like anything. It's not easy to make a living off of anything unless
Yeah, it's not
yoga,
really.
yoga. There's so
Yeah.
many yoga teachers in the US that
You have to teach so many classes that it actually you'll burn out.
Yeah.
So the model it's not. So then I first thought that's what I was going to do, and then I realized, well, I can't physically do this. And then I started coaching my old colleagues. That's how it all started.
That will do it. So okay, so you started coaching your old colleagues. Are they events people as well?
Yes.
Still? Yep. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So what was the key things? Because let's touch on that, and then we'll kind of dig into a few things. What are the key things that you teach them that you've now learned to help them prevent and overcome the burnout?
Yeah. So the first thing that we always work on is priorities. It's always priorities. So I call it like a life inventory. So sometimes until you look closely, you don't realize where your time is being spent. Excuse me. So we look at where are the hours of the day going to? And if you look at those, when you do your inventory, put it on up in a order of the most to the least important. And then see what's in the bottom of the least important. Notice how much time you spend there. And can we swap? That's how I get to work with them. Okay, can we use that time for you? For what really matters, assuming that you should be in that list of things that really matter. Most of us are not even in the list.
No, we're not.
And I mean, I wasn't. I know that. I wasn't. It was everyone else. And this is something that's very common on women. And in some studies, they show that the same amount of women and men report burnout, but about 25% of women, they report their burnout, they're exhausted before they even show up to their work from their homes.
Because they're looking after everybody else and not themselves.
Yes. Yeah. So that's
guys do have a tendency to be able to go, not screw it. I'm just going to go do my thing. They get burned out for different reasons.
Right. So that programming, so that's the first thing. And so with that space, then we start plugging in the exact same things that you mentioned. So we start working with regenerative nutrition. I'm a fan of superfoods and repairing the gut.
Yep.
Because that's your second brain, but it has so much to do with the immune system and your absorption. So we take that and then we add the mindset. And so we do brain calisthenics. I have certain exercises that they use that time to do in order to be able to notice and redirect. It's not like you're gonna do it. It's just ongoing. You notice and you redirect.
It's a continuous thing. I think about for myself because I do the same thing. I think about myself, and even just 12 months ago, some of the things that used to get underneath my skin, I just constantly kept bringing awareness and recognized where they came from my childhood. And went, okay, cool. And then recognize, okay, this is actually stemming from my past, which is trying to create my future. Doesn't need to. Where do I want to go? What do I want to do with it? Which pathway do I want to take?
Correct. But without having even the tangible of this is what I'm thinking, because what happens, I feel, at least in my case, and most of the women I work with, is that the emotions are so, it's what you catch it at that point. You catch it at the point that you have the emotional outburst, or sometimes it's not an outburst. Sometimes it's like detached, like you completely numb. I have clients that tell me I'm like a zombie. Nothing matters anymore. So that emotional component is all they can see. And so if you back it and start seeing at the thought and then the belief they initiated, that you feel more empowered. And so that's the work of the brain sculpting. And then in order for you to do that, I work with breath work and some breath initiated movement. because if you're in such a high emotional state, it's hard to do the work.
Yeah.
So kind of just self-regulate, bring your nervous system into a more parasympathetic space so you can ask the questions, so you can feel and feel safe.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of checking in through the day. How do I feel? What do I need? How do I feel? What do I need? How do I feel? What do you need? And that's the core of it. It's really the three pillars: the body, the mindset, and the nervous system.
That's amazing. It's so important. I live my life by, I create a pyramid, and I a similar thing, look after me. Then I look after, my close friends and family, the ones that I classify as family. And then at the very top is work and everybody else. And most people, as you were saying, even yourself, was looking after work first and everybody else. And then yourself was the little tiny tip instead of the platform at the bottom. But yes, by doing your three pillars, you look after you, and then you can actually show up, because, as they use the analogy all the time, the oxygen mask on an airplane, you can't look after somebody else if you're dead.
Yeah, I have a lovely client of mine who, when she came to me, we had our initial conversation, and this is very emotional, of course. But I remember her saying that one of the things that pain her the most has being the zombie that she become, is that her son would say, "Mom, I told you that already. You don't listen to me. You never listen to me." And she was so frustrated with herself. Because it's not like she didn't want, it's like she was just done, right? Just checked out.
She know how to cope. You're so empty that you can't actually even take anything on. I thought I was getting dementia, because I got dementia in my family. I thought I had dementia, and I walked out of the first counseling session, and she went, "These are the symptoms of burnout." And I was like, "Holy cow, I have every single one of those." And then we walked out, and we were walking around the grocery store for some unknown reason. We decided to do the groceries after the first session. And I turned to my wife and I said, "At least I know I don't have dementia."
Yeah, I thought it was the best.
So I've been living with that as well, and not talking about it, not actually communicating any of it.
Because we don't, when you're a high achiever, you're just like, and there's, I discovered something in my work, because I work mainly with professional women in corporate, that there is a fear that if you admit your weaknesses, you will get passed on a promotion, your career might get damaged, or people are going to think you're just complaining, all of these things. So we don't say a thing. This particular person that I mentioned to you about, one of the biggest things that this work gave her was the closer relationship with her son. And that is, what you were saying, she took care of herself, just validating what you said. It was her nutrition, her mindset, her nervous system, but in turn, that provided for her to be able to be a mom that connects to her son.
Be able to be present, be able to be more focused on the people that she cared about. And it's so true about the worrying about, especially when you get into those dark times, worrying about what others are going to think, the promotions, things like that. I was in law enforcement. I was worried that if I put my hand up, and I'd heard rumors, if I put my hand up, then I could lose my job almost even. I've interviewed some cops in the States and they literally, it is a realistic fear that if they go on to antidepressants, or they're declared depressed, or any of that kind of stuff, they lose their firearm. In turn, they lose their role as a police officer. So they literally cannot work. And so, and I had this fear as well. If I put my hand up, I'm going to be looked at as the weak one, and everybody's going to look at me differently, and everybody's going to judge me. And then it went on top of the fact that I was worried that everybody was going to judge me from just past childhood. And so it does. And it's so true. And for me, I don't know what your thoughts are on it. I'd love to know. But for me, it was, I have to look after me, because otherwise I'm going to lose everything and everyone if I don't look after me. So in turn, I do need to put my hand up. And if something happens because of work and consequences of that, okay. Turned out I went to my boss, and yes, he was freaked out at first, but he said, "Go see the welfare person just to make sure that you can still be on the street, and that otherwise we'll help you and we'll sort it out." And so it turned out to actually not be how I thought it was, but at the same time, there is that realistic fear, especially for people that want to achieve a lot.
Yeah, I had a person in my life that helped me. Not like you. I mean, you kind of had that decision. I had to be the one. What ended up having, with the emotional states that I was having, my partner at the time, my boyfriend at the time, was saying, "You're having pretty much what." I had no understanding of anxiety attacks. I was just so unaware of all these things. This is kind of like an anxiety attack you're having right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? No, I don't have those. It's like, but as I started, he kept hearing me talk about my work and how horrible, how hard, and this and that. And he said, and I said, I think I want to leave, but I don't know what I'm going to do. And he said, like, do whatever you want to do. And for me, it was having somebody that said, yes, you can leave, just you're not going to end up under a bridge.
Yeah.
Yes, but I did not have within me at that point the courage. Maybe I would have eventually, but in my case, it was me having someone next to me that said, you can do it, and you're going to do it, and it's going to be okay. And then I will backpedal. No, maybe next year. And he'd be like, no, look at you. Like you have to do this.
Bring it back to you, is showing it back to you. So
yeah.
I want to bring that up just for viewers, just to really put a point on that. Is as hard as it is when you're in those states, or when you feel like, maybe, people are saying that to you, loved ones say it to you because they can see what you can't. Mm-hmm. When you're in the heat of stuff, mm-hmm. and maybe you're there now, maybe you've been there in the past, maybe you'll be there in the future, but when you're in the heat of stuff, you don't see it.
No.
But others will see it in you. So really make sure that you do listen, not from a thing of, and as hard as it is, it's like, oh my God, they're judging me. They're, they don't understand, they're blah, blah, blah. They can see things from the outside. This is why we hire coaches as well, because mm-hmm. a coach, not necessarily the best on the field, but can observe and see things in the best way in you and what you could work on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a scientific fact that you cannot see your blind spots.
No.
You can't. And this person in my life is so interesting because, it was so insistent. So I had a calendar this is the story. I had a calendar in my office and I marked the date. Yeah. And the day was a month before the largest program of the year, which I've served many years. In that year, I was supposed to be in charge of the VIP program, which made it harder. And I told myself, I am not going to go through this another year. And I told him the day. And when the day arrived, I needed to put my resignation, and my boss was nowhere to be found. And everybody left the office, and I'm sitting there. It's almost 7:30, going on 8, and my boss is running around because of a program. And I sat there because I knew that if I waited, I was going to chicken out. It was like, I have to do this. And when she saw me, what are you doing here? And then she went like pale. She's like, don't do. Yeah, she said, don't do this to me. Those were her words. Don't do this to me. And I told her it was for my health. She understood, but at the moment, it's like, anyone that's losing their top.
All that fear, and she had all her own stuff going on as well.
Mm-hmm. And I did it, but I did it because of the support of this person. You're right. It can be scary to go and ask for help and all these things, but trust that the people around you want the best for you.
Yeah.
More than you kind of can see, because for so long you have neglected yourself.
Yeah, it is. And it's not a bad thing. It's just the thing that you've gotten off track, and people are wanting to help you
right on track. You habitually because you're often, in my case, I was always the strong one.
Yeah.
Right. So I was the oldest sister. That started in that programming started that early.
The programming all starts when we're a kid, when we're toddlers. It all starts back there, and then it just keeps getting reconcreted in until you make a choice of changing it. So Maria, I'm a why guy. I started recognizing whys back about 3-4 years ago when I was doing some work on myself, and I recognized my why is I want to create less pain in the world. So I want to create less pain in people's lives, including my own. And so it creates the best versions of ourselves. And I know mine stems from when I was a kid, seeing my parents argue, then it concreted in later on as well with seeing my brother get bullied and always wanting to stop it, me getting bullied and then carrying on. And I can actually see how my why is in everything that I've ever done. What would you say your why is, Maria, if you know it?
Yeah, my why is to end the lineage, the female lineage of obligation and sacrifice in order to feel worthy. So when I say lineage, is because this is a generational thing. I mean, I got it from my grandmother and my mom got it from hers, and it's been so. I want to break free from that lineage of sacrifice and obligation in order to prove ourselves.
I love it. How'd you identify that?
Because as I became more and more fascinated with my own journey and my understanding of my limiting beliefs, I could recognize the behavior all throughout my family. And then as I started to working with my clients, the same thing happened. They started tracing it back to their mothers and their grandmothers, and I could see clearly how this is a generational thing. And I feel that if I can stop a mom from passing that to a daughter, then in just a couple of generations, this will be different. Like the future generation of women will be able to be brilliant in the workspace, but without that sense of complete sacrifice and utter obligation in order to feel enough. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, because my belief is, from what I've found, is your why has been there along with you your entire life, and every job you've done, everything that you've done, you initially gone into it because it serviced your why. So how did event planning and event management service that why?
How did it serve it? Well, it was two main things. Well, the one is that now I work with women in this corporate space.
Yeah.
And so I had to enter the corporate space and adopt a overly masculine attitude towards achievement. And I would not learn that. I remember literally the times in my 20s when I had to make those decisions and decide not to feel that way. Like I remember vividly when I say, I cannot let them see me suffer. I cannot let them see me sweat.
So right then you were already servicing your why by changing your lineage from your mother and your grandmother and all that, because I take it they did let people see them sweat. They did do all that. And
so I was like
different. Yeah.
And then at the end, what I think the biggest thing was that in how I served my why was that being in those spaces, there was so many people, so much stuff going on. I realized how my capacity, like what actually how brilliant I actually am. I explore that. I play with that. And yes, I push it to the limit, but I would not believe in myself in other careers had I not experienced that there. I don't know if I would have. I kind of knew, okay, I can do it. I did it here. I can do it somewhere else. I just want to do it differently.
Yeah. So it's always creating that different change and changing yourself from your past. Even before you do all the self work, you were already doing it within the event industry.
That's
awesome.
I have a great coach that told me recently, when I decided that I really wanted just to work with women in corporate, that the reason why I did that, it was because I needed to come full circle and heal my relationship with corporate America.
Yeah.
So I had to go through that in order to return and heal it. and to see it as something different. One has to be able to see beyond what it is now and see what it can be.
Yeah, very, very true. So, Maria, when you have, there's people out there I know that don't know their why. They don't know what that real deep thing. It's beyond your purpose. It's beyond going, oh yeah, I feel like this is my purpose to be a police officer, to be an event manager, to be a coach. It's literally deep seated into ourselves, into our soul. What is it that what would you say to them to help them figure out what their why is if they're struggling to actually identify it?
Well, I actually have a process, but let me shrink it that we go through. I call it the why that makes you cry. So the why that makes you cry is because when you are a high achieving individual, you're very used to goals. You're goal oriented. So it's difficult to move from a goal to why. And I said you have to think about why, and the words that some people use are intention, as something that has a visceral connection to you. So you can start with a goal, which is more external, and then start and keep asking yourself why. And when you answer that question why, try to use emotions or words that invite emotion, and then again why, and then again why, and then you go because why. And it's going to be annoying because there's going to be a point that you think you cannot think about why. But go past that. When you go past that point where you're almost like blocked and annoyed that you think that this is it, and you start getting emotional, that's when you get into it. Why? And then eventually, and then don't be afraid of just feeling that sensation of like, I want to cry, because I cannot, I want to be happy with my family. I don't know what it will be for you, but just keep asking why. Don't and I'm not saying 3 or 4 times, I'm saying like 7, 8, 9 times, and then just keep. And that why is not a static thing. You're going to continue to massage it, and you read it, and then you're kind of going to start adding and changing things to it. And then the last thing is that anytime you do something that feels important to you, ask yourself, why am I doing this, and who am I doing this for? And that might start bringing you some idea. So just keep asking yourself why. Be patient, but just why. And then don't bypass the emotions. Use emotional language.
I love that. And I heard not that long ago, actually, I was listening to something about like interviewing and that around like police side of stuff and that. And it was, when you ask the why question, it creates emotion. When you ask what, it actually creates logic. And so by asking the why, I run a similar process with my clients. But I ask them first, I have them ask themselves, why is it important for you to be successful? And because that kind of just starts and it gets that kind of goal side of stuff. And then every answer you ask yourself why it's important. Why is that important? And you got to be real focused on making sure that you are obviously same thing with the emotion side of stuff, but also making sure that you're not saying the same answers you said before in different words.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you kind of...
People can get to about 3 or 4 levels down pretty easily. They'll get there really quickly and be like, yeah, I got it. It's, it's there and that. And I go, okay, cool. Well, why is that important? And they'll say the same answer for like about level 3 or 4. They'll say about the same answer, just in different words. Yeah. And that's where I do things a little bit different to different people. And that's kind of like what you're doing with emotion. I actually get people to go, okay, cool. Well, why is that important? And where did it come from?
Yeah.
Because the where did it come from actually gets them to take whatever that level is. Mine, I think it was around, wanting to be able to, feel close to my parents or something like that at that level. And it's like, well, that comes from feeling like my parents weren't around as much when I was a kid. As soon as I go there, I'm like, oh shit, that has more power. Okay, well, why is it important for me to have people around? And it brings that emotion in, and then you start to figure out where it stems from, because again, like we talked about before, if you know where it comes from, you can then go, oh, and it has even more power, and you can actually create it and make the choices that you want with it. But I love your way just with the emotion, really making sure that they're asking the emotion, but the why question is like the best question I think I've ever figured out.
Yes, yes. And like I said, if it makes you cry, you've gotten there. Not
Yeah.
always, you don't always, but you will feel a visceral connection to it.
Yeah.
You feel like like little thing in the pit of
It
your
lights
stomach.
you up. It's like an aha moment. It's like all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, that is why I do everything that I have ever done. I had one client, his was to create stability. His why was to create stability. And as soon as we stemmed back and we figured out where it came from, it was like, oh my God. And he actually found his within about 3 or 4 levels. He found it, but didn't recognize where it came from or why it was so important until we dug deeper in different ways, and also recognized where it came from of his parents, them having no money and them having to find quarters to buy bread for dinner and like all this different stuff. And he doesn't want that. And so he's always wanted to create stability in everybody's life, because when he was 5 years old, he had these things, he felt like there was no stability.
Yeah.
And it's so incredible. So Maria, what would be, let's talk about, because you deal with a lot of corporates, but also you have that event background. What would be the number one piece of advice you would give to people that are in that event, high achieving industry? What would be the number one piece of advice you would give to prevent or overcome burnout?
Well, one thing about that industry is that in general, you kind of know your schedule for the year, more or less, or at least each quarter. Like, where are your events. And I think it's incredibly important, like any athlete prepares to big event. It is super important that leading to a program, a week long or weekend long, it doesn't matter, that you nourish your nervous system, that you nourish your body, and then that you provide yourself with enough rest and stability to move into it. Don't start. I know that leading to, you also have a lot to do, but you have more power leading to block time. And the other one is to do that. It's literally to create stable blocks of time. And by stable, I mean same time, maybe even the same place. So your brain recognizes, when I'm in this place at this time, I relax, I take care of myself. So this can be, it doesn't have to be an hour. It can just be just 15 minutes, the sacred 15 minutes to give yourself in the morning and in the evening. And then I'm a fan of somewhere around the lunchtime. Just give yourself an opportunity, whether it's to go and get in the sun or do some breath work. You just have to intentionally block time for this, specifically before you go into a program, because it is likely that during the program you're going to have to give up some of this, but don't assume so. That's the other one, because you might be able to do it, but you just are so used to that, well, it's a program, I can't do anything. But observe, and then maybe it's not the full morning, evening, maybe you only have the evening, whatever it might be. Maybe you just breathe in your car, but you have to. So I call those sort of smaller capsules of time that you give to yourself. So like little emergency capsules that you give yourself in the process of high intensity, and really nourish yourself physically on those times. Even if it's liquid, if you have to be juicing, like not juicing yourself, but getting juices and drinking liquid nutrition, like nourish your body so it can support you through the process of a high intensity program. So leading to, you have to give your brain a reference point. You can't find calm if you don't know how it feels. So you have to create those blocks where you're calm regularly. So when you are in this high stress situation, you have your brain and your nervous system have a reference point that you can reach to with couple exercises,
Yeah.
but you have to be so intentional about preparing like an athlete. You eat like an athlete, you sleep more, you like go to an extra yoga class, you meditate a little bit more. Like you're training for the Olympics here. You like you go, or you're an artist and you're going to perform in, I don't know, the Super Bowl, whatever it might be. You have to do that. Prep yourself for the intensity that's about to come. It's smart. It's smart.
So in other words, schedule in you time. Make sure that you have you time and create it a habit so that when you're in the event, it still is like, I have to do this, even if it's for 5 minutes instead of 50 minutes. I have to do something.
You start craving it.
Yeah, you do. So Maria, I know you run some coaching programs and you run some, you help women, especially high achieving women, prevent and overcome burnout. So how do people get in touch with you if they want to reach out and have a look at what your services are? And we'll put the links down below.
Yeah, so I guess these days social media is where everybody's at. So you can find me in Instagram as OM, like My Wellness all together. That's also my website, ommywellness.com. And there you can find the main two ways that I work. It's on one-on-one programs. There's my core repair, burnout repair program, but I also run group. It's called Breathe With Me. And these are breathing courses to support people in creating their own practices so they can start self-regulating their nervous system.
That is awesome. So we'll put that down below. I'll also put your website down there, which is the same thing, just .com.
Yeah.
I'll put those links in the description. So if you are watching this or listening to this, that will be in the description down below, the Instagram handles as well as the website. Last question for you, Maria. What is your top tip to self-happiness?
To make time to be kind to yourself.
I love it. That is perfect. Make time to be kind for yourself. So as you guys know, here at Fight the Burnout, our motto, and it has always been my motto since I was in the police, is train hard, test easy. And the reason that I always say train hard, test easy is because we're always going to be tested. So why don't we train, as Maria was even saying, as you're preparing for those events, train as if you're going to the Olympics as an athlete. So you're going to train your mind as hard as you can. That sometimes is literally sitting on the couch. That is training hard for you. And that is okay. Sometimes it is literally going off and doing a week-long yoga retreat where you don't see anybody, or, going and training your body really hard for something. But we always want to train hard so that when we do get those tests, because we know that we get them, whether it be a loved one saying something that you interpreted wrong, whatever it is, you're always going to be tested. So make sure that you are best prepared for it. If you need a coach, reach out to Maria. She's, she does it. We also do it here at Fight the Burnout as well. So you can reach out to us at Fight the Burnout Podcast at gmail.com. We'd be happy to talk to you about how that can work, or even just give you some more tips and tricks. And also make sure you like, subscribe, and share this episode to anybody that you know could get one thing out of it. Because in life, no matter what we do, if we get one thing out of it, we're winning. So till next time, we love you all. And thank you again, Maria, for being here with us. And remember, we do episodes every single week. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you. So reach out.